This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Americans went to the polls in one of the most important elections in recent memory. They shifted the balance of power in Washington, but how will the midterms affect Israel and the Middle East? Plus, Scott Ross sits down with a Palestinian Arab leader who wants to work with Israel. And a look at a colorful and prophetic celebration by Ethiopian Jews overlooking Jerusalem's old city. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. The results of the 2018 midterms shifted the balance of power in Washington, D.C., but they also affected capitals around the world, including Jerusalem. While Republicans maintained control of the Senate, they lost the House.
There's a lot of power in the House. I mean, there's a lot of influence over appropriations. And so it's not going to be as easy for them as it has been. It's going to be a battle. I hope to God that Israel doesn't have to pay for it, because that would be a terrible mistake.
Mike Evans serves on President Trump's Faith Advisory Board and is troubled by the recent history of Democrats with Israel's prime minister.
Listen, they've tried that in the past. They've gone behind the scenes to try to undermine Benjamin Netanyahu. Some of them have been presidents doing it. So you can be sure there's going to be Democrats working within his own coalition to undermine him. It's not going to be an easy ride.
The next item on the agenda will likely be the president's peace plan.
The president has been pushing what he calls the deal of the century, an Israeli-Palestinian peace accord. And my assumption is that he will be pressing his peace plan more rigorously in the future. My own advice as a member of the Israeli government is that we study very seriously and take seriously this peace plan and try to respond to it as flexibly and openly as possible.
Palestinians see an opportunity.
The Democrats in the United States are getting closer to a position that may lead eventually to a peace process in the area, whereas his policy has really been a very difficult one to understand. It does not get us anywhere closer to a peace process. On the contrary, I think it makes it very difficult to reach a peace process. From that position, I think the result of the elections indicate a possibility of a change in American policy eventually.
Evans says the midterms pose a challenge to both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu.
There's never been a partnership with this great. There's never been an opportunity this great in the whole Middle East as there is right now. In the midterm elections is a very, very difficult dilemma for both of them to face right now.
Here in the region, Iran's leaders are vowing to break new economic sanctions handed down by the U.S. The Trump administration announced sanctions targeting hundreds of Iranian companies and individuals. As George Thomas explains, the penalties are aimed at pressuring the Iranian regime to quit stirring up trouble in the Middle East.
More than 24 hours after the United States slapped Iran with some of the toughest sanctions ever to hit the Islamic regime, residents of the capital city, already facing economic dire straits, are bracing for even more pain.
The sanctions have greatly affected our lives 100%.
Everything from food, transportation, housing, and medical costs have risen dramatically.
High prices negatively impact every individual and every family.
Mina Soleil, who is visiting Tehran, fears this second round of sanctions will lead to more unemployment and hyperinflation.
Prices for shoes and clothes have gone up very high, and a lot of people are not able to buy these things anymore.
Some hope the economic pain will bring Iranians to the streets to protest the Islamic regime and call for its end, as they did last year and in 2009. The White House says the aim of the economic penalties is simple.
Our objective is to starve the Iranian regime of the revenue it uses to fund violent and destabilizing activities throughout the Middle East and indeed around the world.
In all, the U.S. government has sanctioned more than 900 Iran-related targets in the last 2 years. Secretary Pompeo says the Islamic regime has a clear choice.
It can either do a 180-degree turn from its outlaw course of action and act like a normal country, or it can see its economy crumble.
Thousands of Iranians responded to the new sanctions by chanting "Death to America, death to Israel," and burning U.S. and Israeli flags. They even squeezed in military drills in the northern part of the country in defiance, as the government vowed to circumvent U.S. sanctions and keep selling its oil. Iran's supreme leader, speaking on the eve of the anniversary of the November 4th, 1979 takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, used the occasion to accuse Washington of waging military, economic, and propaganda wars. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei told the crowd that America's influence was in decline.
America's power and hegemony in the world is declining and moving toward destruction. It's waning year by year.
But it is America that's putting the squeeze on the regime at the moment, and the White House says that pressure will be relentless until Iran changes its revolutionary course. George Thomas, CBN News.
Up next, meet a Palestinian Arab leader whose attitude towards Israel may surprise you. An overwhelming percentage of Palestinian Arabs want peace with Israel, and one prominent leader says they would prefer living under the Jewish state than the Palestinian Authority. CBN's Scott Ross traveled to the ancient city of Hebron, where he talked with a Jew and an Arab who believe peace between them is possible.
Hebron is often known as one of the most volatile cities in the West Bank. But here in what's also the most prosperous Palestinian Arab city, a different kind of peace between Israelis and Palestinians is discussed on both sides. Noam Arnon speaks for the Jewish community in Hebron. There are now how many Jews living in Hebron, approximately?
Well, it's about 800.
Surrounded by how many thousands of
About
Arabs?
200,000 Arabs. But you see, this is actually the same percentage as Jews in the Middle East.
Those Jews live mostly in a historic sector, separated from the Palestinian population. Arnon took me to meet his friend Ashraf Jabri in the Arab sector. Jabri, an Arab leader here, heads a powerful family clan of some 30,000. We're in Hebron. How long have you lived here?
43 years.
Married?
Yes.
One wife?
One wife.
How many children?
9.
9? You look too young.
I have only 8, so he is more rich than me.
Jabri and Arnon have been friends for 30 years. After our initial exchange, Jabri preferred to speak mostly in Hebrew. You two are friends. You're an Arab and he is a Jew.
Yes.
Why are you friends?
He's our neighbor.
Neighbors.
Yes.
And you get along together.
Yes.
So it is possible for Jews and Arabs to live together in friendship without any conflict.
Yes, without any doubt. 30 years ago, we were working together, doing business together.
Why don't more Jews and Arabs live as you live with your friend?
Because of the politicians.
More than 25 years ago, Israel opened the door for Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, from Tunis, by recognizing them as the sole representative of the Palestinian people in negotiations. Arafat and then Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin signed the Oslo Accords on the White House lawn in 1993, creating the Palestinian Authority out of the PLO to govern the Palestinians. The aim? To end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and eventually establish a Palestinian state in biblical Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. Jabri says it hasn't worked.
PLO.
The PLO signed the Oslo agreements 25 years ago. Until today, we didn't reach peace. It's the opposite. We started with a very big problem.
In the Oslo Accord, the Israeli government had brought the PLO to control the local population. And they said, you bring those people, the corrupted and the terrorists, to control us. Why? I feel ashamed about it. We disappointed them, we betrayed them.
What did the PLO think of you?
I don't care what the PLO thinks about me. What's important for me is how we can all live together in this area, in the state of Israel. If we follow their way, we won't have peace even in the next 50 years.
And he says there has to be another way.
How will we live together under the government of Israel? In the end, this is the only solution.
Do you feel the Israelis are fair and they're just?
Basically, yes. But there's a huge pressure on the Israeli government. Before the Oslo Accords, the whole country was free, without checkpoints, without anything.
So the Oslo Accord was not a good accord?
No one from the two peoples received anything.
Have you been able to influence other Arabs and other leaders to your way of thinking?
Yes, of course. 90% of the Palestinian people are looking for their own future.
Even though Jabri says the masses want to change, saying so would get them in trouble with the Palestinian Authority. Have your enemies threatened you?
We're not afraid of anyone. We speak from our hearts. We speak the truth.
Do you have hope for the future, for peace in the land?
Of course. There's hope. But we have to continue in the way of real peace from both sides. The problem between us is a political problem.
Jabri, who is a businessman, and other Palestinian and Israeli businessmen have ideas about how to make person-to-person relations work, and they want the world to help.
We established a nonprofit in Ariel, Samaria, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We work together. We have no problem with the Jews in any place in the country, in Tel Aviv or in the territories.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, recently visited the Judea Samaria Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the city of Ariel that Jabri helped found. It's intended to develop greater economic opportunities and integrated business models.
I'll tell you something more. If someone threatens the situation, I'll stand up for Noam and protect him. I'm against all the troublemakers and will protect our area.
He would protect you.
Yes.
Yes.
It's our culture. He's my friend. I won't betray his life ever. This is how I understand peace.
President Trump has yet to unveil his Israeli-Palestinian peace plan, and it's unclear what it contains. But if it's up to Jabri and Arnon, it will be a whole different ballgame. Scott Ross for CBN in Hebron.
Coming up, meet an Arab pastor meeting the challenges of sharing his faith and shepherding his flock in the volatile Holy Land. The Holy Land could be described as a melting pot of faith, politics, and ideology in a setting that combines the biblical past with the present turmoil. This chaotic atmosphere makes life challenging for people across Israel, especially for Christians, often caught in the middle. Pastor Stephen Corey embraces his task of guiding the faithful through what some may call a minefield of society, a volatile mix of ideology, history, and family in a land where Christians make up a fraction of the population, surrounded by Jewish and Muslim majorities.
Living in this divided land as a Christian Arab has challenged me to tear down barriers.
Born in Bethlehem, Corey is president of Holy Land Missions. For 30 years, it has reached out to Arab Christians struggling in times of poverty and war. Unlike most Arab ministries, HLM is based on what they call full covenant theology, meaning the belief that God's covenants, including to Israel, are eternal. Pastor Stephen Corey came to our CBN studios and talked with George Thomas to discuss the plight of Christians here in the Holy Land.
So you are an Israeli Arab Christian, grew up in Bethlehem, a place that is now under Palestinian control. Have Christians in Bethlehem left the area?
They have. I was born in Jerusalem as well and seen many wars over the years. Christianity at one point, or Christians at one point, predating the 2000 year era, it was about 85% within the villages and towns of Bethlehem. People try to break it down in different percentage.
Yeah.
And 15% Muslims, give or take. Today, the pendulum has almost completely swapped when you lock in Bethlehem city limits with some of the villages with it. Now it's about less than 15% Christians.
And Stephen, where have these folks gone?
Many have fled to Australia, Canada, some to Europe. and some to the U.S., mostly between the year 2000 and 2010, give or take. Those are the 10-year period where we saw a lot of Christians, excess of Christians leave the land there.
And for those who have chosen to live there, what is it like for Arab Christians in Israel as well as the Palestinian territories?
You know, Brother George, it's a good question. It's hard. It's difficult. Because you ask them why you're staying, usually it's three answers. Well, we want to preserve Christian history. They tell you this is our home. Yeah. They don't think of it as any other way. And of course, they tell you we have to stand strong. The problem is, by them taking a stand, and we're, as a community, as leaders, as pastors, we're encouraging Christians to take a stand. Problem is, they haven't over the years saw too many Christians stand with them to be able to continue standing their ground, just like many of the Muslims there who have Muslim institutes around the world standing with them. So what have we done? We've become proactive. We started to come into the U.S. I've had the honor to go to the UN, speak in other government leaders, speak in other world to say, we have to preserve the Christian history there, our Christianity where it started. And by doing so, many Christians are starting to say, understand there is Jewish realm to things. There's also a Christian realm which many have forgotten.
Is the church in these territories, is it growing? Are there more who are coming to the faith?
It's growing, and we have to be detailed in that realm. Yeah. And I know you and I have talked about this, Brother George, is that it's growing in the sense of conversions, sure, of Muslims who are not necessarily converting, but are accepting Jesus Christ as their Savior. In some terms, it's called conversion. For us, we clarify misconceptions of who Jesus is to them. They see the light and they become followers of Jesus. You might not necessarily see them in a church setting, sure, because of security reasons or what be it, but they're there. So Christianity is growing in the Middle East, especially after ISIS's existence. But we have to stand with the Christians who are suffering because they are the last line standing in the place where Christianity started. And it's our job to do that.
And it's obviously an issue that we're seeing not just in Bethlehem, but we're seeing it in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and so many places of the Middle East. You guys have this campaign. It's called Save the Jerusalem Church Campaign. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you, Brother George. Jerusalem is the epitome, and it's the center for this universe, for this world. When it comes to eschatology and times, it comes down to even the three main dominating religions in the world: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. And what's so unique in my studies in the last 13 years, we have been kicked out of pushed out of three rental properties, pushed out of three rental properties in the last 13 to 14 years, simply because of us teaching the message of Jesus, teaching love and forgiveness, and teaching Arabs to love the Jewish people. That has brought us to a position where nobody's willing to rent us anymore. We made a decision in 2015. If we're going to stay in Jerusalem, which we need to, because we have to be the last standing line there, we made a decision to purchase our own multi-purpose worship training center in Jerusalem, a place where people like you can come meet other Christians in a safe atmosphere, but a place to educate. So our goal is to have our own multi-purpose worship center, to be a city on a hill that cannot be shut down or destroyed. And that's this campaign in Jerusalem. People can know more about it by visiting our website, holylandmissions.org. We're a 501c3 in America. And our goal is to, by the end of this year, to have this center up and running, to purchase this property. We found somebody willing to sell us a property in Jerusalem to be a church, a training center, evangelistic training center, a leadership center, a place where you can come and educate. People can, others watching, pastors, leaders, Christian businessmen can come and educate others on successful business Christian values and leadership values as well. So pray for us. Pray for this Jerusalem, Save the Jerusalem Church campaign. We're at 70% right now of the needed goal. And we have right now a matching donation as well, be able to get to that goal. So pray for us.
Up next, thousands of Ethiopian Jews gather in Jerusalem to renew their covenant with Zion. Imagine God answers a very big prayer for you. Would you remember to thank Him for it year after year? Ethiopian Jews do just that, showing gratitude to God for bringing them back to Israel and uniting them with the Jewish people. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
It's called Sigd, an ancient holiday Ethiopian Jews brought with them on their return to Israel.
Sigd is a holiday which celebrated for thousands of years in Ethiopia, central holiday and symbol of the Ethiopian Jews. Sigd comes from the word lisgod, to worship the creator of the world.
For generations, Ethiopian Jewry dreamed of returning to Jerusalem. Now they celebrate the holiday of Sigd every year right here in the Holy City.
What we did there was to go up the highest mountain and face the direction of Jerusalem, pray for the peace of Zion and Jerusalem.
For the last 10 years, this has been a national holiday, celebrated at Jerusalem's Has Promenade overlooking the Temple Mount. A ceremony is marked with prayer and fasting. Although Sigd is not named in the Bible, Dr. Simcha Gataon says its origins are found there in various celebrations.
We do this 50 days after Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we do personal introspection, and after 50 days, we do collective introspection, together united.
Since 1948, more than 90,000 Ethiopian Jews immigrated to Israel, including some 16,000 secretly airlifted to Israel in 1984, and 7 years later, another 14,500 came in just 36 hours. While the community's origins are unknown, their style of Judaism dates back 2,500 years. Why does the Ethiopian community still celebrate the holiday in Israel?
It's important, first of all, to say thank you to God that He granted us to immigrate to Israel, the Holy Land, the Holy City, to unite with the people of Israel, and in addition to pray that the third temple be built, and to pray for all of the people of Israel.
This holiday represents the holiday of Sigd, not only for the Ethiopians, but for all the state of Israel, for everyone. From year to year, we celebrate this. Look how many people are here. It's really exciting.
About 10,000 people came for this year's celebration, and the Ethiopian Jewish community hopes at some point all of Israel will join them. Julie Stahl, the Has Promenade, Jerusalem, Israel.
Well, that's just an example of the tapestry of life here in Israel and the city of Jerusalem. Well, that's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.